It's prediction time with Johnny and Bo. PHNX Cardinals. Can the Cardinals finish out what would be statistically the worst season in franchise history? They've lost only 13-3 once upon a time was the old norm in the 16-game regular season. This would be the first time in franchise history if they were to lose 14 games. So, Bo, with that being said, they've got 2 road games against 2 premier quarterbacks, Joe Burrow and Matthew Stafford. Do you see any way in which the Cardinals win one of these 2 games?
I don't. End of VOD, right?
Yeah.
There's not much to it. I mean, if Kirk Cousins is finding a way, right? Kirk Cousins post Achilles and being his age and on his way kind of half foot out the door with the Atlanta Falcons is able to come in there and run Q well enough to beat the Cardinals. I really don't give them much of a chance to beat Joe Burrow and the Bengals, who seem to have awoken after a tough performance the previous week. You got Chase Brown, who's running the ball at a high clip. What do you have? 3 total tutties on Sunday. Yeah. And then Joe Burrow, who seems to want to, and that Bengals team that want to parlay something or continue to start the parlay at the end of this season into something next season. The Bengals, as far as this week, I think in Cincy, bad matchup for the Cardinals, and then with something to be played for there in the finale against the Rams, who already kind of smacked the Cardinals down a little bit earlier. With them playing for something, very big as far as playoff positioning potentially, I think the Cardinals, man, they are going to be hard pressed to get another dub before the final whistle blows on this season.
Yeah, the only game in which Joe Burrow didn't look like Joe Burrow, I think it was that Bengals home game against the Ravens. There was no T. Higgins in that game. They lost 24-0. So, I guess they're capable of a clunker. But, the Ravens are competent. They're not having a great year. They're 500. But, I contend, and this has been my biggest conviction, the Cardinals flying for an early kickoff on the East Coast in cold weather, coupled with what we've seen from this team, there is no rhyme or reason why they should win this game. Jacoby Brissett's come back down to earth. Yes, we've talked about the injuries. Certainly the team wants you to know they've got a lot of players injured, headlines here and there. They're just as fraudulent as the Bengals defense is, and Zach Taylor may be the foursome of Chase Brown now, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, and Joe Burrow is going to be too much for the Cardinals defense. And then, we'll see if Trey Hendrickson plays. I can't remember if he's on injured reserve. If the Cardinals can't score 20 points. The Cardinals have not scored 20 points in over a month, right? Pulling this up now, this isn't good podcasting. Does anybody know the last road game in which the Arizona Cardinals have scored 20 points? You'd have to go all the way back to the Dallas Cowboy game on Monday Night Football, when they coincidentally had their last win, when they scored over 20 points on the road. So the Cardinals, the way you have to look at them, and I'm preaching our fan base because they get it, the Cardinals are amongst 3 of the 5 worst teams in the NFL. That's who the Cardinals are. Whereas the Bengals, I think the Bengals, because they're going to beat the Cardinals, they're going to beat the Browns in the finale. The Bengals are going to finish 7-10, so they're probably a playoff team with Joe Burrow this season.
Yeah, and look, they're fully capable of scoring points. As we saw at 45, they hung on Miami. Right. What do we know about the Cardinals? They just haven't had the ability to get off the football field. No punts did they force against Kirk Cousins and the Falcons. Sure, they had 5 fourth down attempts where they were able to get off the field on 3 of them, and job well done there, but just wasn't enough. When you couple the Cardinals defense, which has been trending so poorly, you mentioned since that Dallas game, they've given up the most points in the NFL since then. Wow. Dead last. Worst defense as far as points allowed in the league since, with what you're pointing out as far as this offense not being able to score 20 points, giving up 30 plus, not being able to score 20. There's just too much ground to cover there. It's really unfortunate. It's doom and gloom. And I know people are probably bogged down by this at this point. So what does it mean? What are losing these last 2 games and potentially, a couple maybe non-competitive performances incoming? What is it going to mean for the future of the Arizona Cardinals in January?
Well, we talked about it on our Monday show. The optics of the worst season like statistically in franchise history. I see people still trying to compare to 2018. Well, like, okay, if you're comparing it to 2018, they blew up their team. They fired their coach. They traded their quarterback. They brought in a new quarterback. Like, okay, if you want to use that as a barometer, like this season, and I will push back on anybody, is worse than 2018. That 2018 team, Cardinals, they had a first-time head coach. The roster was not good. They signed Sam Darnold and drafted Josh Rosen. Even the most like eccentric Sam Bradford, excuse me. Expectations would have been like, oh, could the Cardinals like get to 500, right? Nobody was picking the Cardinals to make the playoffs, right? They hadn't made the playoffs the prior 2 years with Bruce flipping Arians. This season, the Cardinals were predicted to be a playoff team. You couldn't get plus money on them over 8.5 wins to start the year. This is the worst season in franchise history, and I expect it to be capped off with these 2 games. And, like we said on Monday's show, Bo, like I expect it to lead to wholesale changes. I think that rap sheet report, the press release report, is not going to age well because I think the Cardinals internally thought they were going to beat the Falcons. They did not. The crowd was not great. Now you're going to go on the road. I mean, they're approaching, before these 2 games, a minus 100 point differential on the season. They will eclipse that and then some after these 2 games. Like I will be, the spread's -6. Does that get to 8.5 by the time kickoff happens this weekend? And then, my God, Jonathan Gannon, the last game of the regular season against a Rams team that is going to look at the Cardinals as mincemeat tune-up time. Pray for this staff in that finale. That is going to be such a bloodbath for this franchise.
Yeah, and look, we trust the reporting. My co-host is one of the many that have reported that the support from ownership has been there from this coaching staff.
Right.
Michael Bidwell likes Jonathan Gannon a lot. He really does, and I think that the owner and the head coach are close. But given the circumstances of this season, in this day and age that we live, asking the fan base to kind of have to sweat out this delayed gratification to try to prove that Jonathan Gannon is the guy, it doesn't exist in this day and age. No. You don't have the luxury of it in this sport. And it's unfortunate, right? Because I think, like, when you look at the first 2 seasons under Jonathan Gannon, there were a ton of great things that he accomplished, that he was able to kind of get in the right direction for this organization that was previously rudderless. But when it came down to it after season 3, the losses just stacked up to a number that you just can't come back from. It's really, really unfortunate. I think that as far as NFL front offices, as you see often with these cases, they have the ability to change. Things can change. And I think from the assurances that were made earlier this season to how it's going to play out, how we're trying to forecast it, where it seems like it's going to be continued doom and gloom to the final whistle, it's just going to be too tough for them to just kind of hit that button and advance this coaching staff, or at least JG, to the next season.
You can't put a fresh coat of paint on this staff. I also think, in a weird way, it's not fair to ask Jonathan Gannon to remake an entire staff going into the following season in which he could be fired before Halloween. Like, if you have to say that out loud, because I see that, and Cardinal fans are correct, based on the metrics and the numbers, minimum, you should fire every coordinator, including Nick Rallis, on this team. Well, no one does that. Why does no one do that? Because inevitably you just go one step above and you fire the head coach. That's the NFL, right? Nobody is saying Rodgers, Petzing, and Rallis are all going to be fired and Gannon has to hire a complete new staff like it's 2023. It's not realistic. And then again, I know, I'm sure Gannon and his camp would be confident that they could get people. The quality of candidate, I know people are like, the Cardinals job may not be appealing. It is if you get a 5-year deal, right? But who's coming here on a 1-year contract to help a rudderless ship right now? The Cardinals have gotten progressively worse. The injuries have mounted, but the injuries are not the reason that they're a losing team this year. The coaching has been below average, saying it nicely, putting it mildly. It's been a coaching malpractice. started with the offense. Now it's seeped onto the defense. You don't get these kind of chances where you can survive. No one survives 3-14 in year 3 of a rebuild. Nobody does.
Right.
It would be the most unprecedented carryover maybe in the history of the NFL. And when you're potentially hemorrhaging season ticket holders, which we've heard, which is a problem, then that makes the decision easier for ownership.
Yeah. I mean, through it all, through everything that the Cardinals fan in this great state has been through.
Right.
So many of them are calling it at this point, and it really is.
And they're your franchise,
right? Especially from where we were going into the season with the expectations of it all. It's I know I might get flack for this. I call it admirable to want to, believe in a guy, want that continuity, not want to be so knee-jerk as far as ownership in making changes to the coaching staff, to the organization. But as far as it all is kind of played out, it feels like his hands are tied as far as Michael Bidwell is having to make a change here. What do you guys think? Obviously, drop a comment here for us. Drop a like as well and subscribe to PHNX Sports here on YouTube.